spent in a miserable way.
U.S. News: inmates at freezing federal jail in Brooklyn pounded out a message. The New York Times. By N. What you need to know to start the day. From the depths of a federal jail on the Brooklyn waterfront, the sound reverberates a polyrhythmic pounding like a hailstorm on the roof of a shed. It is the sound of hundreds of men in freezing cells at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Sunset Park, a jail that was virtually without electricity and largely without heat for over a week. With the jail on par, the inmates bang anything they can. You shoot their fists you against any surface they meet, the walls and windows and bars of the jail that holds them. Sunday morning, when protesters unfurled a long paper banner across the street from the jail that said "You are heard, you are loved," the inmates banged their approval. When Qatar Yehuda, whose brother Jason Smith is serving a gun possession sentence at the jail, led a chant through a megaphone, "You know heat, that's torture you," the inmates banged louder. Ms. Yehuda, 50, called for quiet. "Stop banging for, there is no heat," she shouted, "bang on the windows." The inmates, nearly invisible behind the windows, pounded louder and louder, the fusillade filling the white empty street. Around 6:30 p.m., electricity was restored. But problems with the prisoners banging out complaints is nothing new, of course. Every old prison, at the Metropolitan Detention Center itself, of loved ones down on the street shining flashlights up at the prisoners in greeting, and prisoners responding by making noise or waving their own reading lights. Vincent McCrudden, a former inmate at the jail, recalled how excited prisoners got to see people down below. "That air freezing in there," said Mr. McCrudden, 57. "That air stuck with it, but the pounding has taken on a new resonance since and fled. There were no immediate reports of arrests. Lawyers from the feds, there has been unrest inside the detention center, too. People were injured. Government. Andrew M. Cuomo, no one in New York should live in fear that they may freeze to death alone in the dark, Mr. Cuomo said in a statement. These allegations, Federal Bureau of Prisons officials are due in federal court in Manhattan on Tuesday for a hearing ordered by Judge Alyssa Torres in response to what she called disturbing living conditions.
Raindrop, drop top, smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park pot.